I am joined with Michelle Hamilton, a registered psychologist at Beyond Balanced here in Lloydminster. And it's always a pleasure to have you in because we learn something new every day. So today our topic is communication. And not only just communication, but you mentioned assertive communication. So do you want to kind of just explain what that difference is just between communication in general?
Okay. Well, I mean, I just think of assertive communication as when, you know, a person is really intentionally trying to express themselves in the context of a relationship, right? Where they are trying their best to address their own feelings and quite possibly their own needs. Right?
Yeah, for sure. And so with assertive communication, how do we kind of get our message across in a positive way instead of maybe, in my mind, I see assertive communication as almost something like as a negative, and you don't want to get to the point of where maybe you're getting into that kind of push and pull fight situation. So how do you kind of make sure that you get your thoughts across in a positive way?
Well, a lot of people fear assertive communication because it feels a bit like conflict.
Yes.
And many people are very avoidant or stressed by conflict. And so unfortunately, you know, a lot of times communication gets put aside. But assertive communication is not the same as being aggressive or confronting or attacking another person. You'd want to choose your words carefully. You want to think about what you need to say. And you want to stay really focused on the frame of coming from the I. You know, we call that simply an I message. You know, to learn how to express your concern from the listen, I've noticed and I feel and I really hope that. As opposed to coming across in a confrontational way where you might say, you know, listen, you always, you never. So the framing of the communication is a simple and important way to make sure you're on the right track there.
Absolutely.
Keep it focused on the I.
Yeah, so instead of pointing the finger, which tends to normally, I know if someone's pointing the finger, most people just kind of shut down.
You get defensive.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So if you focus more on yourself, then you find there's benefits of you end up getting kind of further in what you're hoping to achieve.
I think so, yeah. And I think it's also important to make sure that the person is aware that you have something important to talk about, you know, so that they're focused, hopefully, and that they're able to kind of like be intentional also about listening. So I think setting the stage for communication is also a really important thing to do.
For sure. And I know just on relationships in itself, is assertive communication something that is important maybe in the workplace as well?
Oh, definitely.
Building relationships with people, your coworkers, your boss, and things like that. What does it look a little differently than what it would look like in maybe a relationship, a personal relationship, than it is in like a workplace situation?
I suppose that, you know, there would be differences, personal communication and versus work-related communication, but I think the gist of the idea is still the same, you know, to be prepared to address your concerns, to be prepared to express your feelings and also to ask for what you need. And then likewise to listen and carefully and hopefully allow the other person to likewise express themselves and in hopes that the communication supports improving the relationship.
Absolutely. Just real quickly, one last thing, just a question for you. For someone who maybe is more of an introverted person who doesn't like to talk about their feelings, things like that, what would be your first suggestion to kind of maybe step out of that box and make sure that their voices are heard? What is that kind of like first step to take?
I think just, you know, as I said about setting the stage, I would just encourage the idea that someone says, listen, there's some things I want to talk about, you know, and planning ahead maybe more intentionally about what are the key points, the feelings or the changes that you're asking for, you know, so that you can feel a little more well prepared because it may be very stressful for many people to communicate in relationship.
For sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in,
welcome.
Michelle. Full of knowledge and full of tips. I love it. So thank you so much for coming in. If you want to get more information, Beyond Balance is where you go to speak to Michelle personally.
Thanks,
so thanks so much for coming in. Thanks.